Yeah, understanding tonality really helps, but using it as a technique, which is what he conveys, okay, puts you back into the realm of standard salespeople.
Yeah.
And it's the thinking. And the most successful people that I coach are the ones who get the thinking, who
Hmm.
suddenly get a aha behind the two principles. See, the first two principles, well, we can go into this some other time, but it'd be a good subject for discussion. But the first two principles, which are copied, especially Jeremy copies it, but he doesn't teach it. You know, the first one is about detachment, and the second one is
Hmm.
about the purpose of a business. And
Hmm.
but really, when you listen to what he's teaching, it he contradicts himself there,
Yeah.
and there's a kind of a discontinuity, and that's where most salespeople are coming from.
I
And you know
believe.
the
Mhm.
way you hook someone is you focus on objections. So your marketing is about how to eliminate objections.
Well, I was
All
going to
right, but
say, right, I think if you're going to do those content pieces, it's because you're speaking to your market where they're at, right? That's just how they think and are. But it just becomes immoral when your product doesn't actually convey that. But I also believe it's, what we talked about a moment ago, which is just there's too much scale. They're pushing too hard to get it into people and not focusing on the quality of it. Because what I found when I went through NEPQ, and actually someone had asked me this the other day, what was the most impactful program I'd been through? And I said, probably NEPQ at the time. I didn't know about you at the time. It would have been natural selling if I'd found you first. But I said NEPQ because, I bought it when I was at a really hard point in my sales career. So it forced me to have a lot of accountability, but it also forced me to go through the training because, I was in a position where I now needed to make money to afford the payments for this program. But what I said it lacks, and I think where a lot of people who have bought an EPQ and say it goes wrong is that there's a lot of nuances, like you said, to the thinking, but also just even the execution of the tactics, these little mastery patterns of how you actually know or calibrating someone's own emotional intelligence to actually be in tune with where somebody's at. A lot of people don't know when they've built enough pain to then present a solution. I've run into that where they just they just keep probing and probing and probing. It's probing. It's like, did you know like 3 minutes ago you actually got enough for you to have a sufficient amount of pain to present a solution?
yeah,
But there's not enough of that goes into teaching people how to do it. And like the 2.0 and 3.0 programs, there's a lot of tactics. Don't get me wrong. They tell you good things. They give you practical tactics that are better that you haven't heard other places, but there's no teaching on how to think, which would help with, there's no teaching on the implementation. And I think what you do, which is great, is you teach people how to think so they can implement naturally. If they know how to think the way you do, the actual action becomes fluid. They don't have to think about it. That's what I said it lacked. But I was blessed to have enough friends who were selling with that sales methodology and to be in environments or to even have worked for Sniper where I was around enough people doing it in practice that I could kind of develop my own intuition or my own level of thinking or see it used in enough context where it's like, oh, okay, that's how it works. But a lot of people don't have that. They buy the program, they have one product, they maybe have access to those live calls. They don't have a network of other high performing reps around them who live and breathe the same methodology, and they're just left to their own devices. And then they left with trying to, and the thing that they resort to is I try too hard to sound like Jeremy and do the whole Jeremy thing. I've had friends who you start a sales call with them and it's like you press the recording of one of Jeremy's recordings. They do the whole, okay, so the whole hand clap sequence and they do all the questions and the gestures. And it's like, it's good, but it's mockery. You're not actually yourself. I was thinking about another niche where this is relevant. Music is a really big one where I think like being a good sales rep is a lot like becoming a professional musician where at first, yeah, you're going to have your teacher that's going to show you how to play the drums. And then they're going to teach you how to actually have some finesse to it so you can actually improvise. And then they'll hit a point where you hit a certain level of mastery where now you actually have to develop your own sound and your own flow. What are the patterns you like to do? What are the nuances to how you play? And nobody can get you past the, hey, this is the drum kit. These are the things, and this is like the music pattern you play. Everybody sounds the same. And the people that progress, they just try to emulate good things better, but they never hit a point where they're actually their own person. And that's when it breaks down. Because if you're faking to be somebody else or just trying to work off your memory, rote memory, like the school might teach you, where you memorize things, you hit a point in your conversations where you run out of things to say. And like you said, they don't have a thinking or independent brains. They've conditioned themselves into thinking they can't be themselves and see somebody else that they just hit the end
well,
of the line.
correct me if I'm wrong, is that his and others teaching it teaches it in a linear fashion. In other words, there are seven different types of questions. Jeremy's so all
Yep.
similar.
The seven phases, go through them this way.
You go through it linearly. But I
Or
see
your script is this too.
yeah, see, the challenge in teaching and learning is that we learn linearly we read linearly. We go from chapter 1 through to chapter whatever it is, chapter 11, right? But we converse non-linearly. And so the key is how do you break out of that linear conversation? If you learn it linearly, and it can be done, you're in a structure, whereas the structure really is free flowing. There is no structure. It is about taking individual types of questions and knowing how and when to use them, and understanding that some of those questions actually double up as other questions. I mean, they're all qualifying questions in a sense, except background questions, but to a certain extent they are, because you're getting background. So they double up in a way, and that's what they're not really being taught. That's what they're really missing. And so the question is what is the flow? What are you listening for? Why are you asking this question in the first place? And then what are you listening for? Because you can get a dozen different answers to the same question. It's like, how do you develop the mindset, the natural selling mindset, to develop the next question if it's relevant to do so? So you have to you have to focus on your objectives. What are your objectives? Now, a lot of people just ask questions, and like you said, the pain point was reached, the agreement was reached that something had to be done way earlier. It's just that it was never explicitly said. But you need, but you need to be able to pick that up by asking a qualifying question, and a qualifying question would be sort of very really determined, have you had enough pain, so to speak, have you dug the hole? Have you dug your own hole deep enough that you really want to do something about it?
Yeah,
See,
I think one of the I was going to say, one of the things I think I love about your methodology is how fearlessly direct you are in those instances, where I think, like you said, have you had enough pain yet? Well, once again, the tactic without, this is an idea I've been preaching recently, is the tactic without context has no relevance. So it's like that question without the context of everything you said prior won't land and it won't stick. But I think the beauty in a lot of what you, and even the little questions I've heard you use in our interviews, is I was like, it's so direct but non-offensive. It's just something I never thought of. I didn't think you could quite bridge the wall like that, but it's just transparent.
And there's a reason behind that, and there's a reason I can do it. It's because we're coming from a place of relationship and empathy. It's easy between you and I because we already have that. In a sales situation, in a sales situation, you can still do it. In fact, this is what we can talk about if you want. But that's the difference between what most salespeople are teaching and what I teach. I mean, you could take this last 1 to 2 minutes clip, edit it and put together as a clip.
No, definitely. That's why I threw this on, is I know we got a bunch of things there. I've got an editor, so I might just throw in some timestamps and chop this into like little nuggets. I think the best thing is the truth about tonality. I can sort of already see the headline there, like you talked about. I've said it's like you don't really manage your tone, you manage your state, but I think you take it a level further, is manage your intention. Because if your intention's in the right place, your delivery will be proper. You don't have to try to sound empathetic if you just are. You don't have to try to sound curious if you just are. But everyone's so focused on, what are these tritonal closing patterns that you'll hear, right? So there's a lot of hogwash out there. But
See,
okay,
I like that. You don't manage your tone, you manage your state. That's a great one. I'm going to borrow that one.
go for it. That's the one that I say, because if you can feel the way that you need to feel in the moment, in that part of the conversation, your delivery will be there. When you're happy, you sound happy. When you're sad, you sound sad. But if you force yourself to sound sad when inside you're happy or skeptical, or more importantly, objection handling, when you're feeling tense and fear yourself and you're trying to force yourself to sound confident, it doesn't work.
Or you lean in and say, so how do you feel about that?
Yeah.
No,
So intense.
That's manipulation.
Yeah. I've seen the 3.0. You've got Jeremy doing the live trainings with the teams, and it's like, yeah, you just, it is what it is. I could only imagine. I see that and it makes me wish, like, I hope to God a door-to-door salesman doesn't come in my house and I'm in my own space and they lead in with that.